You believe you are sitting still. You look at your hands and they appear steady. You feel the weight of your body on the chair, solid and immovable. But this is the first lie your senses tell you. The truth is far more unsettling. If we were to strip away the dampening filters of your brain, you would realize that you are not a solid object at all. You are a trembling gelatinous mass, vibrating constantly, disappearing and reappearing 14 times a second. Consider this. At this very moment, while you watch this screen, you are being shaken. Not by an earthquake, but by the engine inside your own chest. Your heart is not just a pump, it is a cannon. Every time it fires, it ejects blood with such force that your entire body recoils in the opposite direction. It is Isaac Newton's third law of motion playing out inside your ribcage. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Most people live their entire lives deaf to this rhythm. They are asleep at the wheel. But Itzhak Bentov, the scientist who dared to bridge the gap between hard physics and mystical trance, found that this recoil is not a biological flaw. It is a feature. It is the ignition key to a mechanism so powerful, so ancient, that history buried it under metaphors of serpents and fire. Before we unlock the first seal, if you are one of the 2% who can feel the vibration even when sitting perfectly still, if you have ever felt a rhythmic pulsing at the base of your spine that matches no known medical condition, please click subscribe. You have already begun the process. We are here to give you the manual for what comes next. Why is this important? Because the micromotion of your body is not random noise. It is a frequency code. And for thousands of years, monks and mystics have been trying to hack this code through chanting, rocking, and breathing. They were trying to amplify what your body does naturally. They were trying to wake up the coil. But to understand the coil, you must first respect the machine. You must understand the hydraulic violence happening inside you right now. Let us strip the human body down to its mechanical essence. Forget the poetry for a moment. Let's look at the plumbing. Your heart sits suspended in the chest cavity, connected to the aorta, the massive main artery that curves upward like a shepherd's crook before descending down the spine. This shape is not an accident. It is a design masterpiece. When the left ventricle contracts, it fires a slug of blood into the aorta. Picture a heavy piston firing into a flexible tube. The blood rushes up toward the head, hits the curve of the aortic arch, and is forced down toward the legs. But remember Newton. As the blood moves down, the body must move up. Bentov measured this. He placed subjects on a highly sensitive table, a ballistocardiogram, and he watched the needle dance. He saw that with every heartbeat, the human body oscillates. It moves up and down, head to toe, in a rhythmic motion of about 0.005 to 0.01 millimeters. It sounds microscopic. To the unawakened mind, it is negligible. But in the world of resonance, size does not matter. Frequency matters. This tiny motion creates a wave, a physical pressure wave that travels through your tissue, bouncing between your skull and your feet. Under normal conditions, in your chaotic, stressed, everyday life, these waves are messy. They are out of phase. They crash into each other and cancel out, dissipating their energy into heat and tension. You feel this as heaviness. You feel it as the drag of existence. But what happens when you stop fighting? What happens when you relax so deeply that your muscular armor falls away and the waves are allowed to bounce freely? This is where the physics becomes forbidden. Bentov discovered that the natural resonant frequency of the human body, the aorta body system, is approximately 7 cycles per second, 7 hertz. Does that number sound familiar? It should. It is the theta rhythm of the brain. It is the frequency of the twilight state between wakefulness and sleep. It is the frequency of the earth itself. When you meditate, when you calm the breath, you are not just relaxing. You are mechanically tuning your body to allow this 7 hertz oscillation to take over. You are turning your skeleton into a tuning fork. The hydraulic hammer of the heart begins to pump in perfect rhythm with the natural bounce of your spine. And when the pump matches the bounce, something terrifying and beautiful happens. The waves stop canceling each other out. They begin to stack. They begin to climb. This is the birth of the standing wave. Now, imagine the spine, not as a stack of bones, but as a spring, a coil. In engineering, if you vibrate a spring at its resonant frequency, it doesn't just wiggle, it amplifies. The energy has nowhere to go but up. Bentov realized that as this 7 hertz oscillation builds, the standing wave forms along the spinal column. The pressure is no longer just moving blood, it is moving the cerebrospinal fluid, the sacred liquid that bathes your brain. This fluid begins to pulse. It is no longer a stagnant pool. It becomes a hydraulic piston of its own. With every heartbeat, a surge of pressure shoots up the spine and crashes into the floor of the brain, specifically into the lateral ventricles. Ancient texts called this the serpent uncoiling. They described a force rising from the base of the spine, hitting each chakra until it pierced the crown. They told us it was spiritual. Bentov showed us it is acoustic. It is a sound wave moving through liquid. The serpent is the standing wave. The chakras are the nodes of the wave, points of maximum vibration along the spine. And the crown? That is where the wave hits the skull. But here is the danger, and here is why this knowledge was kept secret within the walls of monasteries and mystery schools. If you force this mechanism, if you amplify the voltage without preparing the wire, you burn out the circuit. The standing wave creates an immense electromagnetic field around the head. Imagine your brain as a crystal receiving set. For 40 years, it has been tuned to only one station: survival. It picks up the noise of traffic, the fear of bills, the envy of others. But as the cerebrospinal fluid begins to oscillate at 7 hertz, it physically stimulates the sensory cortex. It begins to scrub the crystal. The mechanism is waking up. The coil is priming. But there is a barrier you must cross before the signal becomes clear. A barrier built of your own tension. Why is this experience so rare? If the mechanism is built into every human spine, Why isn't everyone walking around in a state of cosmic ecstasy? The answer lies in your muscles, specifically in the armor you wear to survive the modern world. Bentov discovered that for the standing wave to form, the body must be a perfect resonator. It must be loose. The aorta needs the spine to move with it. But look at how you live. From the moment you are born, you are trained to hold it together. You are taught to brace against impact. Stress is not just a mental state, it is a physical clamping. Every time you feel anxiety, your micro-muscles tighten. You lock your shoulders, you clench your jaw, you stiffen your lower back. In the language of physics, you are increasing the damping factor of your oscillator. Think of a bell. If you strike a bell that is hanging freely, it rings clear and true. It sustains the note. But if you wrap your hand around that bell, if you dampen it, the strike produces only a dull thud. The energy doesn't turn into sound, it turns into heat. It turns into friction. Most of you are walking around as dampened bells. The hydraulic piston of your heart is firing, but the energy is being absorbed by your own tension. You are literally converting your potential enlightenment into lower back pain and exhaustion. This is the great tragedy of the Western mind. We try to force awakening. We try to achieve meditation with the same aggression we use to achieve a career. But you cannot muscle your way into resonance. The harder you try, the stiffer you become, and the more you kill the wave. Society relies on this stiffness. A population that is out of phase is easy to control. A population that is tired, aching, and disconnected from their own biorhythms will buy anything to numb the pain. They will buy the pill, the distraction, the entertainment. They will never find the switch at the base of their spine because they are too busy holding themselves together. If you are tired of the dull thud, if you feel that you are carrying a weight that isn't yours, this is your sign to stop fighting. The first step is not to do something new, it is to undo the damage. Here lies the paradox that baffles the intellect but liberates the soul. To control the energy, you must give up control of the body. Bentov called this letting the skeleton dance. To activate the coil, you must reduce the friction to near zero. You must allow your body to move with the recoil of the heart. You have to trust the physics. When you sit in meditation, do not try to be a statue. A statue is dead. Be a reed in the wind. When the heart pumps blood up, let your head nod back microscopically. When the blood rushes down, let your body sink. It is a tiny motion, invisible to the outside eye, but to your internal sensors, it feels like a sway, like a pendulum. This is where the concept of love enters the equation, not as a sentimental emotion, but as a technical necessity. Bentov argued that love is the highest form of coherence. It is the smoothing agent of the universe. When you are in a state of fear or anger, your vibrations are jagged. They are noisy. They create heat in the wires. But love, true, unconditional acceptance of the present moment, smooths out the waveform. It turns a jagged sawtooth wave into a perfect sine wave. Think of love as the lubricant for your nervous system. Without it, the high voltage of the Kundalini will fry your circuits. We see this in people who force the process without the emotional maturity to handle it. They suffer from what the ancients called Kundalini psychosis. Their wires melt because the resistance was too high. You must cultivate a state of harmonic resonance. You must love the process, love the stillness, love the vibration itself. Only then does the resistance drop. Only then does the circuit close. And when the resistance drops, the magic begins. As the standing wave stabilizes along your spine, the oscillation of the cerebrospinal fluid hits a critical threshold. It begins to stimulate the sensory cortex of the brain rhythmically. Normally, your sensory cortex is busy processing input from the outside world, your eyes, your ears, your skin. But in this state, the input is coming from inside. The body is talking to the brain, and the brain is talking back to the body. A closed loop is formed, a self-sustaining feedback loop of pure energy. This is the 0 point Bentov spoke of, the point where the observer and the observed merge. You are no longer a person listening to your heart. You are the heartbeat. You are the wave. The separation between you and it dissolves. The electrical polarity of your body shifts. The brain becomes a positive pole. The base of the spine becomes a negative pole. You become a living battery. The current flows not just through your nerves, but through the electromagnetic field surrounding you. Your aura isn't just a metaphor anymore. It is a measurable field of ionized air expanding as your voltage increases. In this state, the brain stops processing linear time. Why? Because time is a calculation of distance between two events. But in a standing wave, everything is happening at once. The beginning is the end. The alpha is the omega. You touch the fabric of the hologram. You begin to see that the reality you thought was solid is just another wave, another frequency that you can tune into or tune out of. The tempo slows down. The voice becomes deeply resonant, almost echoing. We are no longer explaining mechanics. We are describing the infinite. What does it feel like when the circuit finally closes, when the 7 Hz standing wave successfully stimulates the cortex without resistance? It is not a subtle feeling. It is often described as a thunderclap. As the acoustical standing waves vibrate the ventricles, they create an electrical current in the gray matter of the brain. This current sweeps across the sensory cortex, the strip of brain tissue that processes sensation from your toes to your head. Because the current is rhythmic, it stimulates the sensory homunculus in a specific order. You might feel a tingling starting in your toes, moving up your legs, your spine, and exploding into the top of your head. This is not energy in the mystical sense. This is literal electrical stimulation of your nerve endings. Then come the visuals. As the current hits the visual cortex, you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain. You see flashes of light, geometric patterns, mandalas of neon blue and gold pulsing in the dark. Bentov described this as the lens of the mind focusing. You are seeing the structure of your own consciousness projected onto the screen of the void. And the sound. You will hear a high-pitched whine, like a supersonic jet or a carrier wave. This is not tinnitus. This is the sound of your own nervous system operating at high efficiency. It is the hum of the universe. In this moment, the wild pendulum of your mind stops swinging. It rests in the center, the still point. And in that stillness, you escape time. You are no longer a biological entity fighting for survival. You are a field of conscious light observing the hologram that you created. So, what do you do with this forbidden physics? Do you retreat to a cave and rock back and forth until you ascend? No, that is the old way, the way of the escapist. The secret of the coil is not about leaving this reality. It is about mastering it. It is about realizing that your body is a receiving set, an antenna capable of tuning in to information that exists beyond the speed of light. When you understand that your frustration, your fear, and your anger are simply noise that disrupts the signal, you stop clinging to them. Not because it is holy to be calm, but because it is practical. You realize that every time you tense up, you break the circuit. You cut yourself off from the source. The God code is not hidden in a temple in the Himalayas. It is hidden in the hydraulic pressure of your blood. It is waiting in the silent pause between your heartbeats. You have the hardware. You have the manual. The only variable left is your willingness to let go. To let the skeleton dance. To let the armor fall. To let the serpent rise. This is the physics of the mystic, the mechanics of the divine. If you felt the resonance in this message, if you understand that science and spirit are just two different languages describing the same standing wave, then you are ready for the next decoding. We have only scratched the surface of the holographic universe. In the next transmission, we will explore what happens when you take this tuned antenna and point it at another human being. We will decode the physics of telepathy. But until then, keep your spine loose, listen to the silence, and remember, you are not the drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. Subscribe. The signal is getting stronger.